What's going on, guys? TG or ThunderGod here. Today we're doing a pretty interesting video, doing what if Sage mode and Kyuubi Chakra mode, which I'm going to refer to as KCM through the rest of the video, what if they swap fights? A lot of people are probably thinking, you know, Kyuubi Chakra mode's probably just a lot stronger. Why even make this video? Well, I think it's a bit, you know, it's not quite as black and white as that. These two forms actually excel at different things, and I think a lot of people make a lot of blanket statements when discussing them. So before we get into the actual like versus matchup, I'm actually just going to discuss like these two forms, some of the differences, some of, like the misconceptions around some of this stuff, just so we're on the same page with everything. Now, one of the biggest problems I've had, and I've been guilty of this line of reasoning, is using Naruto's encounter with Sasuke at the end of the 5 Kage Summit. Now, I'm going to start off with this. 5 Kage Summit Sasuke, you know, the one that fights Danzo or whatever, versus Sage Mode Naruto, is a good debate, and I think both sides have a lot of good arguments. So it's not more so coming at like one side or the other. It's more so people using the idea that like half dead, like blind Sasuke is just above all forms of Naruto, and Naruto's encounter with him just convinces him that he needs the Nine Tails Chakra. And that's just, you know, Sasuke's that strong, Nine Tails is that much stronger. Naruto says he needs the Nine Tails Chakra, bada bing, bada boom. This isn't really how it went down or what really is going on. For starters, before they even interact, Naruto's able to intercept Sasuke, whether he's using body flicker at that moment to travel faster to where Kakashi and Sasuke were fighting. And Sasuke's slash only gashes like Naruto's cheek. Like it doesn't even like do serious damage, so he probably caught like the very outskirt of the blade. So it's already coming in kind of hot. For starters, Naruto needing the Kyuubi's Chakra is not only due to Sasuke being like a high diff opponent for him, but it's also due to the pain situation, him confronting his own inner hatred in order to deal with Sasuke's, along with the fact that even fighting someone who could like high diff him would put him in a situation to where the Leaf Village is exposed to the Kyuubi again. So he can't even risk losing control on top of what's previously established. Now, the problem I have with people like saying that Naruto needs more power off of looking at blind Sasuke is that it completely ignores one thing I'm going to cover in a sec, but what they'll never bring up is that Sasuke also directly contradicts his own ideology just to crush Naruto, as even while near blind, he was still able to, he was still about to go to Konoha at the end of the Danzo fight. So blindness wasn't the main issue with him, and the data books also supplement this by saying Sasuke required Itachi's eyes, hating the scenario their owner wished. He once refused the transplant of his brother's eyes when he later decided to have those eyes. Something inside of him changed, and Sasuke felt various kinds of feelings. The reason for having Itachi's eyes transplanted was to defeat Naruto, he told Madara. Which is true. So you're essentially making the concession if you argue, oh, he's going off base, like fatigued base Sasuke. Sasuke also thinks he just needs more power to beat base Naruto. It doesn't really work if you cut it both ways. And this is consistent with both of them entering the mental space, or like the mind space. Naruto and Sasuke enter the mind space where they exchange dialogue through their combat. A narrative point Sasuke brings up in their first fight at the Final Valley at the end of part 1. This being consistent not only during the Kage Summit, but during Naruto and Sasuke's final fight, where they're essentially able to have full-fledged combos through exchanging fists. Both times being when the duos are extremely comparable in power. I know people say Naruto is stronger in the Final Valley. He did have techniques that put him above Sasuke, along with like all the character stuff of him not wanting to kill Sasuke. But you have to understand, like, Sasuke was close to that Naruto, you know, Sage's 6 paths mode and Kurama avatar with his own perfect Susanoo. Not getting into that, point I'm making is that even if one of them is stronger, the gap can't be by this cliffing amount or just like isn't shown to be. With both of them just thinking they would high diff each other and like kill each other. So they obviously need more power. So I just wanted to take a sec to just like talk about that little thing. It just never made sense to me, and you know, I've been guilty of making this argument. If you want to argue Naruto needs more power off of seeing Sasuke blind, you also have to argue Sasuke needs more power after seeing like base Naruto, who also had a panic attack prior, so he could be feeling the effects of that, or just recently got gashed with poison. So it just doesn't really work. And if anything, Naruto has more of a measure, since he actually did sense Sasuke's Susanoo avatar fighting Kakashi, sensing its Susanoo arrow speed, and obviously sensing Sasuke's hatred peak out. So if anything, Sasuke actually has less of a, you know, benchmark to see. But the moral of the story I'm getting at is the two are extremely comparable. Think whichever one's stronger if you want, but Naruto should be scaling to a later version of 5 Kage Summit Sasuke. That's pretty much what I'm saying. Whichever one you go with, entirely fair. An interesting point I see people use as a defeater for Sage Mode Naruto is just that, you know, Pain's not that impressive if you don't think Pain's impressive. And that Naruto's doing well against him, so I guess Naruto's not that impressive physically because they're relative. What people don't know is that a lot of the feats that people perform on Pain is when Pain's not locked in. And let me explain that, because that sounds goofy as fuck. So I've talked about this before on the channel. The Rinnegan does have a sensory mode, right? But It's essentially when the Rinnegan's like pupils get bigger. But what people don't bring up is that Pain uses this when he's actually like enhancing his perception in general and making it so that he can react better. And Pain does this versus fast attacks or in certain situations or against certain opponents. So for example, right, everybody talks about how Pain's just dealing with Jiraiya hand to hand and like, you know, a smoke bomb. Pain's actually visualizing that with his like enhanced perception because you see the pupils are bigger. He does the same thing with Jiraiya's Senbon, which are noted to be his fastest attack in Sage Mode. So he does it against attacks that are noted to be fast. He also does it against Kakashi. This is the only time he does it against Kakashi, by the way. But he does it when Kakashi tries to Raikage the Asura Path from behind, you know, that speed amping technique. He also just does that just due to him not having shared vision. So when Pain like is dealing with faster attacks or he just wants to make sure he can perceive his target, he kind of enters this sensory / enhanced perception mode. And you'll actually notice that when Naruto pulls up, he instantly does this. So when Naruto pulls up, he instantly locks in, right? So you kind of have a metric with Jiraiya's fastest attack in Sage Mode, a faster attack from Kakashi, which this also explains why Pain just straight up did not perceive Kamui, because he wasn't using this enhanced perception that allows him to perceive these faster attacks, or just like Pain locks in with his visuals. And he also does this when Naruto's like going in for mutual strikes in Sage Mode, or when he's fighting like the animal path in the air. So, and against like Konohamaru, the Naraka path doesn't do it. Against like Kiba's mom in the anime, the Preda path doesn't do it. This is a mode that Pain does when he wants to make sure he can visually perceive a faster attack and deal with it accordingly. So Pain has his own actual like pseudo way to enhance his own perception capabilities. This mode doesn't just increase like Pain or give him like a sensory buff or allow him to see like the barrier in Konoha or Naruto's like Sage Chakra. It actually allows him to perceive like faster attacks incoming, and you see him use that. And he also, Nagato just blatantly does it when he's fighting Hanzo, which I think also outlines why Kabuto sold with Nagato. He didn't allow Nagato to lock in. So yeah, that's one of the things like I would point out as well whenever you see people like talk about Pain or Pain's physicals or stuff like that. Like check what's the deal with Pain and like what status he's in, and check like to see if he's locked in. That's pretty much the biggest thing I'd say. So let's just put a little chart up. I want to start discussing like the differences between these two forms because I just want to address that real quick. So starting off with Sage Mode versus Kyuubi Chakra Mode. Starting off with Kyuubi Chakra Mode, it just has like better stats. And when I say better stats, it's just generally faster. Naruto's just displayed to be entering like a higher speed tier with it, especially when he combines it with Body Flicker. There's not really too much of an argument to be made that like Sage Mode could be faster than Kyuubi Chakra Mode. Kyuubi Chakra Mode also has a 1-up on Sage Mode in the sense that Naruto doesn't really need clones to do the Rasen Shuriken because he can now utilize Chakra Arms, which essentially enable him to, you know, perform all these cooler variations of the Rasengan. He can do a mini Rasen Shuriken. He can just grab enemies and throw them into a giant Rasengan. He can do a violently rotating Rasengan. And KCM does change throughout the war. It does, you know, grow. So does Sage Mode. So when I like talk about it in different areas, I'm going to be explaining like which distinct version I use. KCM also just lasts longer than Sage Mode because it's directly dependent on how much chakra Naruto uses from the amount that he stole from the Nine Tails, because we know the amount he stole from the Nine Tails just stored somewhere else in his body. And, you know, Kyuubi Chakra Mode is straight up pulled from that source. This essentially makes it that he can perform variations and do a lot more than he could in Sage Mode, as he's not limited to like a 2 Rasen Shuriken timer or the amount of nature energy gathered in Sage Mode or the 5-minute timer that was placed on Sage Mode. This also makes a lot more sense why Naruto goes into the form much more than Sage Mode, because it's pretty much like he has this amount of the Nine Tails chakra. Even if it goes to 0, it'll just start recharging and like going back up again. Kind of like you fill up a bottle and then you empty the bottle and the bottle starts going up again. Even if Naruto goes back into Kyuubi Chakra Mode, he still just uses that little bit that was like recovered. Which again also explains why he's not using Sage Mode as much in the wars, because he's like traveling long distances. It makes much more sense for him to just be traveling, go into Kyuubi Chakra Mode, which is faster, instead of sitting down, gathering nature energy, and then like only having the speed boost for 5 minutes. This would all factor into Naruto also saying to Nagato why Kyuubi Chakra Mode is just straight up stronger than Sage Mode, or at least the variation of Sage Mode that he used against Pain. I think it's very plausible to say that the Sage Mode Naruto uses later in the war, or if he had even decided to use Sage Mode at that moment, would have just been stronger than the version that fought Pain. I'll talk about this a lot more in detail later in the video, but Naruto's Sage Mode just does improve throughout the war. Even though he doesn't really train it, like he tries to on his way to the 5 Kage Summit. He's like, I need to make Sage Mode last longer, and then Sakura interrupted his training with her bullshit. You might be able to just say because he uses the form more, he's just getting better with it. B kind of implies this as much as real combat just gives you way more than training ever could, and we know Naruto's Kyuubi Chakra mode also improves, and there's indicators to Naruto's Sage mode also just improving later on in the war. So you have a faster form, no, not really that timer restriction. You have all these variations you can do. What does Sage mode really do better than Kyuubi Chakra mode? Well, Sage mode excels a lot more in the hand-to-hand region, obviously having Frog Kumite and variations like the Frog Slap. I'll get into these more later, but these are abilities that just Kyuubi Naruto doesn't have or doesn't really gain access to. Something I will also add is that Naruto in Kyuubi Chakra mode and Naruto in Sage mode just have different versions of sensory, whereas Naruto is able to sense hostility and like other portions of the Kyuubi Chakra, Naruto's Sage mode just has better sensory. And this, this comes about a couple different ways. It starts out with Naruto just like having better general sensory, as he's able to sense the entirety of the war in vivid detail. But it's made pretty clear to us as he mentioned Sage mode having a wider danger sense and being faster than Kyuubi Chakra mode. Which, before I tackle that, you could argue this is in reference to base Naruto. However, this would be very weird since Naruto's gone into Sage mode multiple times and had the form for a while now, along with him previously having used Kyuubi Chakra mode against the third Raikage and it not working against the third. So it just makes more like sense in the context of the fight for him to be comparing it to Kyuubi Chakra mode here. This on top of the fact that he never even fought the third in base and concedes directly that this is a Raikage level opponent who's fast. Unless you're saying like base Naruto is just going to perform similarly to Kyuubi Naruto and, Sage mode Naruto, it makes no real like sense to just say he's referencing his base form. It has to be referencing Kyuubi Chakra mode. Now, what this essentially means is that Naruto can perceive attacks from a wider range and perceive them quicker in Sage mode than he can in Kyuubi Chakra mode. This does not mean, however, that Sage mode Naruto is dodging anything that Kyuubi Naruto can. It's just that Naruto can kind of compensate for some stat differences with those added sensory buffs. Sage mode also does have to be comparable stat-wise on some metric for this form to even be like usable in Naruto's mind. Whether that's argued from like lower stats and increased perception and like faster reaction times, I think that's fair. But this is literally an opponent who is dodging like chakra armed attacks and Rasen Shuriken throws at close range that the third is dodging. So for the form to not have some level of relevance is just absurd. Like, he's literally using it against an opponent that's dodging attacks from his Kyuubi Chakra mode. Kyuubi Chakra mode is better in longer, wider movements due to Naruto having the ability to combine it with body flicker, whereas Sage mode is better in shorter, more narrow movements or like closer exchanges, pretty much creating like two entirely different forms with their own unique set of abilities and trade-offs. We can talk about the rest as we get into the video. And if you guys enjoyed what you're hearing, consider subscribing or liking, or don't, I don't know. Let's keep going. Starting off, we have Kyuubi Naruto against Pain in like Sage mode Naruto's position. Now, for the sake of discussion, I'll just use, Kyuubi Naruto post like training with the Kyuubi's Chakra, as if I just use like fresh out the gate Kyuubi Chakra mode Naruto. Otherwise, he's like slamming his foot somewhere, getting stuck and getting cooked. So yeah, and when you consider the fact that Naruto is going to be having all of the same support that he did previously, he comes in kind of strong here. And from what we know previously, Naruto is just blatantly faster than Sage mode here, which would make Pain's job quite a bit harder. Naruto quotes to Nagato that he's just blatantly stronger than when he fought Pain. Again, however, this is after Naruto had gotten progressively more used to his form. So for the sake of argument, I'll just mention that a very fresh out the gate Kyuubi Chakra mode, like he just unlocked that shit in Sense Kisame, is not winning here. He's going to just slam his foot somewhere in the battlefield. He has no mastery of the form. So that's probably not going to happen. I mean, it probably wouldn't have happened for Sage mode anyway, too, since he didn't have to practice. But I thought I'd at least mention that. Now, one of the biggest advantages Naruto will have here is that Kyuubi Chakra mode will just last a bit longer than Sage mode, so he wouldn't be limited to like the 5-minute timer or the 2 Rasen Shuriken limit. He'd be simply limited to the amount of chakra he stole from Kurama, which is actually quite plentiful, and we've rarely seen Naruto gas out or run out, really only shown with his battle with Itachi and Nagato. And this could even be chalked up to Naruto's like ego, or like Naruto kind of getting high on the Nine Tails chakra because he thinks he can just solo the war, and he's not even aware that his Kyuubi Chakra mode's about to run out. So like maybe a better argument would be he's not being like cognitive of his reserves, but at the end of the day, it does mean that Naruto will do a lot better, as he won't have to worry about any shadow clone refills. And the name of the game is, can the Kyuubi Chakra mode take down 5 paths before Tendo recovers? Yeah, I mean, look at it like this. This is what I want you to like keep in mind. Everything's just gonna play out the same. He's just gonna be doing like better, and he's just gonna be moving down and taking the paths down faster. And there's like a lot of things Naruto can do differently and a lot more effectively. For example, he can throw a Rasen Shuriken with his chakra arm still like attached, and then like throw the Rasen Shuriken from the chakra arm that like was extended, so he could like dash in the middle of the paths of pain and do this. And even if Naruto throws it, if for whatever reason like it did miss, he can actually just tether Chakra to the Rasen Shuriken and then just run up and slam it into another path of pain. Like, he's gonna be able to catch bodies, especially since Sage Mode Naruto was just taking down the paths of pain with his Rasengan variants. The only one he takes down with like regular force is the Preta path, and even then that was hit by like a nature energy strike. You know what I'm saying? He'll be much harder to hit, obviously, and the fact that Pain really couldn't do too much to Naruto when he was in Sage Mode to begin with does paint this as somewhat of like, it's going to be kind of difficult for Pain. Now, granted, I do think Pain versus Naruto requires its own video, but Pain actually does struggle to take down Naruto with the summons, and again, the fact that Naruto is going to have all this support just puts him in a really good position. So more often than not, the paths of pain aren't going to do too much. Now, even a potential human pad GG just is kind of out of the question, as not only did Pain not risk this in character, but Naruto has been shown to be able to resist it and can actually grab his soul with his chakra arms. Granted, this is partially due to him having a more recent experience with the Kyuubi, but we'll just say it slides through for, you know, the sake of discussion. Now, a focused Tendo path is much more interesting to talk about, as this is the same path of pain that was tangling with Six Tails Naruto. The reason Tendo alone is so impressive is due to how Nagato makes, you know, Pain's strength levels variable depending on who he fights. With Tendo specifically, and with him funneling chakra into that path of pain, he can perform some pretty remarkable feats, as, you know, when he doesn't have to worry about controlling all six. For example, the Giant Shinra Tensei on the entirety of the leaf. Would a more focused Tendo path with its ability to push and pull Naruto, negate all ninjutsu and taijutsu, do a lot better? Probably, but to be honest, it really wouldn't make too much of a difference, since Naruto's chakra arms are actually a pretty hard counter to the Diva path, in the sense that if Naruto gets hit with Bansho Tenin, we kind of saw that he can extend arms and like propel himself back. Or if you want to argue, he would extend the arm to the Diva path and push the Diva path away, kind of like disrupting the flow. Even Kakashi's shown just to be able to throw like a chain and grab it against the Diva path. Again, I think the biggest thing here is that he just doesn't have to worry about Sage Mode refills. And you could argue a potential Bansho Tenin into Preta path, like Chakra Absorb the Kyuubi Chakra, could work. And if it does, I mean, shit, that Naruto's out. But that's just so likely because, as I discussed previously, the chakra arms are just like a pretty hard counter to that. Naruto can just catapult off different things. And especially in this open of an area, he's just going to be able to do what he does best and just kind of dart around, propel himself, do all these variations with his chakra arms and body flicker around. Is just going to give him a lot of opportunity. And again, even the strongest path of pain doesn't inherently just give him a W, even though like it'd be kind of hard for Naruto pretty much. This is one of those situations where, you know, Sage Mode was already doing really well against this fatigued version of Pain. And granted, Naruto did lose that fight. You know, he's obviously dealing with a faster form with all the support he had originally. Shibaku Tensei is a GG. Naruto thinks so. Maybe if you argue he just throws 3 of the Rasen Shurikens, that's also something. I will say as well, this entire discussion is just assuming Naruto at this point just doesn't make 12 clones all in Kyuubi Chakra mode to just like fight the paths of pain at the same time, which obviously if he does that, I mean, it's kind of cooked. I'm going to be honest. And, you know, part of the reason he's able to do that in the war is just due to like that conversation with Kurama he had, since Gyuki does warn him like don't make shadow clones because it will take like a proportional amount of the Nine Tails chakra. But obviously, and you know, the Nine Tails will take that back, but the Nine Tails doesn't really do that in the war, since obviously like Naruto is growing on him and he obviously prefers Naruto to Madara. So I mean, if you consider that, there's not too much Pain can do. It kind of overcomes the limitation Naruto had originally too, with only being able to make 3 clones as opposed to, you know, as many as he could like against the Nine Tails. So again, it's just not really a good situation. If you want to argue like Six Tails versus Kyuubi Naruto, I think that's fair. I will say the argument that the Six Tails can use the Bijou Bomb and that Naruto can't, meaning the Six Tails is stronger, is not a good one, since Gyuki and B kind of note that Naruto actually does perform it a couple times during training. And even when you cut back to where he sends his Ginkaku and Ginkaku, B's like, oh, you were so close. So it's more so that shadow clone with a lower amount of the Kyuubi's chakra tried it, and it just didn't work. It's kind of similar to the Rasen Shuriken during the Kakuzu fight, where it's kind of like, it's not reliable, but, you know, it could work. So, yeah, aside from maybe like a Chibaku Tensei, there's just really no way to argue like Naruto just doesn't perform well here, or just better than he did in the original fight. Next up, we have Naruto versus the 4th Raikage. Now, this is a weird one, since in the original, like, quote-unquote fight, Naruto is just trying to make his way past the Raikage, and they're kind of having like a speed test against one another. So it's not really like this fight. Like there's like one moment where Naruto is like gonna make shadow clones and stuff like that. But yeah, it's not really a fight. So I mean, in a conventional sense, I'll say this: Sage Mode Naruto just wouldn't be able to like blitz the Raikage to the same degree that, you know, Kyuubi Naruto did. I think we can all agree on that. That's also like extra down if you think that Naruto's like mentally amped when he does the blitz on the 4th Raikage due to him thinking about everybody in the war. I think this is questionable, but by all means. But let's say it's a straight up fight, right? Let's just say like Raikage and Naruto start scrapping, right? Let's reverse engineer this. Let's reverse engineer this for everybody, because we're gonna get to the speed. I know people are like sweating getting about the speed, but let's reverse engineer this. Is Naruto gonna be able to damage the 4th Raikage? Yes. Rasen Shuriken's tearing through his cloak just like it did his father, who's more noteworthy via durability, with the implication that the 3rd had even survived a Tail Beast Bomb via Gyuki, not even being sure like if the Tail Beast Bomb was what injured his chest or what exactly it was. Whereas for A, it's just never like shown to us that it's on the same degree as durability. Even his on-screen feats against the 8 Tails are shown with the 3rd Raikage helping him. Not saying that like A doesn't, you know, have some semblance of similar durability. I'm just saying it's never made as apparent. In a similar sense to the 3rd Raikage having the same level of speed as A. It's never made as apparent, as he's not the one just throwing body flicker on with his lightning cloak. The fact that Naruto also blatantly damages the 3rd with his Rasengan is also just a great benchmark to display that the 4th is just not immune to these techniques. This also being a clone of Sage Mode Naruto, who would have a lower base chakra supply to like fuse with nature and make Sage Mode, giving him a lower output of jutsu. So if anything, this is like more of a conservative end and should just speak volumes about what an actual like Sage Mode Naruto with his original body would do. This on top of Naruto being able to bypass the Raikage's like durability or lightning cloak with Frog Strike, a noted inside destruction taijutsu that transmits the power of chakra like a wave. And you even see Naruto just slap the inside of a tailed beast and it has an effect on him, with the purpose of pulling out the Rinnegan Rod, obviously, but it's noted to be effective against enemies with a strong defense. So Naruto doesn't even need to directly attack, but whether you argue Rasen Shuriken, Rasengan variants, or the Naruto's like way to like kind of deal with conventional durability, with the element matchup and AP, or way to just get around the 4th's defense, he does have ways to take him down. So the durability aspect isn't the issue. Like, he does have the AP and the means to get past that. Obviously, we have to get into speed.
I am speed.
Let's start with version 1 Raikage. The version with his hair down, you know, that arbitrary version that fans have just assigned to V1. This is the version that, you know, Suigetsu and Jugo are able to fight and, you know, react to, along with Sasuke actually being able to dodge and counter in close quarters. Sasuke with his MS active also just blatantly dodges the Raikage after he tries to guillotine drop him. Not too many people actually know this, but when he's on the floor and the Raikage goes to slam him, Sasuke actually uses the Susanoo arm. You'll see it on screen. It actually pulls himself off the ground. This is consistent with the anime. While the Raikage's fist is still in the debris and he's still like facing downwards. So it's very clear that Sasuke pulled himself out and then the arm dissipates after. That's why you don't see it when he does the Amaterasu like around. But this is also why the Raikage ramps up, because Sasuke had just blatantly dodged him from such a disadvantageous position due to his higher level of dojutsu, making it easier to perceive the Raikage. This is extremely relevant. It goes back to that Susanoo era point that I mentioned earlier, with Naruto sensing that level of speed from Sasuke's attacks, and that obviously being a far stronger Sasuke with a much faster attack than the one that's just fighting the Raikage right here. The only thing that would maybe be used against like Naruto being V1 Raikage speed with Sage Mode is potentially, you know, the Raikage matching Naruto and KCM1 with V1, but this doesn't really work since Naruto multiple times notes that he's going to keep increasing his speed, so he's like speed testing himself against the Raikage. Naruto actually rarely goes full speed when he's in KCM1. It's very few times he actually does. I've also heard it argued that Naruto is mental amped when he dodges A's punch. I think, so here's my opinion on that. Because a couple people have asked me this. My issue with this is that we know a couple things. He didn't use body flicker against A before when like he was raising his speed, because like it's never noted. Tsunade only notes when he uses body flicker to like dodge A's punch. Same thing with B when he uses it against Kisame and he sees that. So Naruto doesn't even use body flicker that much. He does it a couple times in the war, and each time he does it is when he's kind of like compared to Minato. Same thing with slapping away the tail beast bombs. And the problem is the whole narrative surrounding this is that Naruto pretty much has to prove to A that he's the savior and can surpass like what A is, similar to the previous savior, that is Minato, and outrun his fastest punch. So for Naruto to temporarily be over this level kind of contradicts the idea that he can be the savior of the world. So, I mean, you could argue he's mental amped and he just retained this level after the fight. I think that's also fair. I just do want to note for Naruto to temporarily be above A just completely contradicts the whole narrative this fight is trying to portray. With that, only somebody faster than A can be considered the savior. And he also just, completely outblitzes A. Like, it's bad how much faster he was here. Like, he's right behind him. The difference is insane. So, it goes completely beyond what we've seen before. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I just want to throw that in for anybody who cared. Probably don't, but... And I'm not saying, like, oh, this just means, like, Sage was just going to be darting around to the same degree as what Kyuubi Naruto does. But again, it goes back to my explanation earlier where Sage Naruto kind of operates more in close quarters, these, like, kind of counter moves, not the broad flying movements that Kyuubi Naruto is doing against the Raikage. This is also consistent with Sasuke when the Raikage ramps up to V2 and he does the guillotine drop, which Sasuke is still able to perceive and use Enton to counter. You could argue the Raikage moving linearly is also making it easier for Sasuke to perceive him, but I think Sasuke having, like, able to, like, visualize the Raikage's movement without him using body flicker, I think that's fine, and his mental reactions being somewhat of a similar level, I think that's all fine. Which isn't new to Naruto, since most shinobi can just react to people faster themselves or just perceive it mentally. It's more so, okay, are your mental reactions there? Okay, how does that differ from your physical reactions? And then how do your technique and technique speed play into that? So it's not simply like 1-1-1. Nah, these things are variable between fighters. The idea that Naruto also just blatantly compares the third Raikage to V1 Raikage, or just says like they're generally fast, just kind of points to all these things to where like Sage Mode Naruto will be able to combat him. Version 2 is a bit more questionable since we don't really see the Raikage. The Raikage is weird, right? Because he'll fight in version 2 for prolonged periods of time, and then he'll just use body flicker for very short periods of time, just because it probably consumes way too much chakra. And for those being like, oh, the versions just mean like the Raikage's level of speed, well, they also directly impact his reaction time too, which is why they matter, which the data book for the Raikage discusses. I'll put it like this: if the Raikage starts out how he does in character and tries to go for his grappler-like taijutsu fighting style with like V1 or potentially V2, he's gonna just get up straight up counter-hitted by Naruto. And this is especially prevalent if you factor in like Sage Mode being able to perceive things faster and at a wider range than Kyuubi Chakra Mode. Factoring in Kyuubi Chakra Mode using body flicker, as Naruto has to react to things at this amped up level of speed, pretty much giving an idea of like what Sage Mode is going to be able to perceive. So you can actually make some pretty insane arguments for Sage Mode, at least at this point, maybe not earlier. Now, I also think the Raikage probably is just not getting tagged by a Rasen Shuriken, as Naruto's obviously not going to be able to use it to the same finesse as he would in Kyuubi Chakra Mode. So he's probably going to be avoiding that, which is pretty detrimental to Sage Mode Naruto, as it could be argued that his Sage Mode limit has, or like timer or amount of chakra has increased at this point in the series, but we don't really have a metric to quantify that, so we still do kind of have to say like the 2 Rasen Shuriken limit is a limit at this point. So Naruto's definitely going to excel with like those close quarters Rasengans that were just damaging the third Raikage. That's definitely going to be his win to victory. Body flicker is definitely the biggest issue for this Naruto, and I do think body flicker Raikage is just blatantly faster than this Sage Mode Naruto. I don't think he's so fast that Naruto's like mental reactions just wouldn't be able to perceive him, in a similar sense to how Sasuke is actually mentally able to throw up Kagetsuchi before the Raikage actually just goes in for a lateral bolt of pain. Granted, he doesn't know where the Raikage is, and this Kagetsuchi probably isn't inherently that much faster or even any faster than his initial Amaterasu that the Raikage was shown to dodge. You could potentially argue it. I think just saying they're relative is just a fair estimate. There's no real basis to say one's faster than the other, on top of Sasuke not knowing where the Raikage is. And we actually do see that when the Raikage like slows down for a second when he sees the black flames, like his foot puts him to a halt, Sasuke actually turns to see him. So again, like these mental and visual reactions from like a Sasuke that isn't at the same level as the one like Naruto's referencing, I think are very telling. Obviously, the Mangekyo Sharingan and Sage Mode are both very different in how they perceive attacks, but again, if you go off the idea that Sage Mode is above that Kyuubi Chakra Mode in what it can see coming, and that Naruto is just putting himself against like Sasuke's faster attacks, it sets up a pretty good idea that he's not just outright getting slammed by this Raikage. And the whole Amaterasu blocking feat isn't actually that crazy at a certain point in the series. Like the A-Tails just does it. Not too many people know that, but Killer B has all his tails behind him, and then Sasuke launches Amaterasu. And and he's just able to block it. You know what I'm saying? So it's actually not that insane for a lot of characters to do. Naruto's Sage Mode Sensory being this high would be consistent with even like Naruto in the Final Valley being able to react to a Amaterasu and shave it off with like Chakra from the Nine Tails. Now you could argue, okay, you know, that's a stronger Naruto. That's also a stronger Sasuke, and that's base Naruto. Base Naruto doesn't really have any notable sensory increases aside from sensing like the Nine Tails Chakra and Sasuke specifically via their Six Paths link. So if you downscale it back down to the Sage Mode that has reflexes beyond that of KCM's, you could actually make a good case that Naruto would just be able to perform a similar feat, or just, you know, be able to do something, probably not just outright dodge a Amaterasu the same way, but maybe summon a clone, or just like throw some stone up, or, you know, maybe Rasengan the ground. And this is obviously relevant as we're kind of comparing these two characters to A. So it's kind of just displaying that these max speeds are not going to be outside Naruto's mental reactions, and that he probably will be able to do something, especially if A does come in linearly, which is going to make it even easier for Naruto to react. Again, the main issue is just body flicker and how he kind of like deals with that, because that's going to be the big issue that even Sasuke was struggling with. A can actually take a pretty good W here. He just kind of has to play it correctly and not just move like some not make bad moves, bro. But it's unfortunate because a lot of his like lightning style taijutsu or a lot of his in-character reactions, he just doesn't start out at max speed. Or he has like linear movements like the Lariat, which is directly like 1-for-1 what the Hell Stab is, and which also kind of aided Naruto in dodging it better. And even with the Hell Stab, Naruto dodges last second. It's not even like he crazy precogged it. He just saw it faster, and his physicals were close enough to where he could just dodge it at the last second, and then Rasengan the third's arm. So the way I would like encapsulate this fight is that the Raikage essentially has to go for like a body flicker off rip to just try and like KO Naruto. Otherwise, obviously, Naruto's going to be able to, like, kind of maneuver around, maybe use some shadow clone feints, kind of like he does against Pain to create, you know, smoke diversions. But if the Raikage does try and come at him with, like, a linear moving attack, it's like, similarly to the third Raikage, he's just going to get countered and he's going to get taken out. And we do know that the Raikage can, like, kind of funnel Chakra similar to Chidori when he cuts off his own arm. He can, like, you know, kind of have it going forward as a blade. We don't know if it's to the same degree as if like when he's doing his standard lightning armor, since he resorts to base when he does it. So it probably just isn't. It probably just isn't as effective. So the Raikage probably has his best opportunity if he forces it in like an open range, try and take down. But if Naruto plays around and forces it close range, he can definitely take a good W. I actually don't think Rasen Shuriken's even landing in this fight. As I mentioned before, it's just more so close quarter stuff, which is where this Naruto excels. And we do see against the third Raikage, he's able to break himself. You see Naruto essentially put his foot down after lunging at the third and just like maneuver himself in perfect positioning. So his Sage Mode speed is on those Raikage tiers. It's just like how much faster is the fourth? And in my opinion, like the speed disparity is most prevalent when the fourth uses body flicker, which is main way to victory. It's essentially like, can the Raikage kind of time out Naruto's Sage Mode timer? But then you also get into his body. He can't maintain body flicker for that long. And if you're wondering why I'm bringing that up, he just doesn't like, hasn't been displayed to just spam body flicker or just use it like over and over and over again. It's in very short bursts, so you just can't maintain it, which again makes sense since it's very chakra draining. Granted, the fourth is stated to have like Bijou-like chakra reserves. This is stated by Kerid in the chapter statement when like him and Tsunade pull up. But we do see it just doesn't maintain it for long. When he's fighting against Madara, he's not using it. Him and Tsunade are performing similarly in close quarters combat against the Madara Susanoo clones. So this is a really interesting one. I think you can actually make a valid case for both parties where they both have these time limit restrictions. It's just kind of like how they play about with their matchups and stuff like that. I would probably lean 6 out of 10 times on the Naruto side, but it's definitely possible for the Raikage to win, especially if he's not playing around. In character, I think if he kind of approaches it how he approaches a lot of fights, he might be in a pretty bad position, especially if he approaches it like he did Sasuke or against like Kyuubi Naruto in the original fight. But if he does keep his distance, doesn't use too many linear movements, and times out Naruto's Sage Mode timer, then he's just guaranteed a W at that point. Naruto pretty much just has the most like correct toolkit to deal with the Raikage, and these levels of speed are nothing foreign to him. Clones have shown relativistic levels. It's just kind of like how these characters progress with the fight. The next matchup we have is Sage Mode Naruto and B versus Itachi and Nagato. And I'm gonna be honest, Sage Mode doesn't really assist Naruto that much in this fight, since I mean, from a stat perspective, he was kind of not really on Itachi and Nagato's level. I know people debate like Itachi versus, you know, Kyuubi Naruto and like their exchange and stuff like that. Like, I'll just say this, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before with KCM not going max speed at all times in the war, and the anime obviously does make this like scene different, stuff like that, but Itachi's MS and Susanoo are probably just blatantly faster than Naruto due to his EMS Sasuke scaling, along with his reactions being on that level. This doesn't really matter here though, since yeah, Naruto could fight with his eyes closed, for example, but Itachi wasn't really going for genjutsu against him anyway. The fight would also just play out a similar way with Naruto and B just like fighting, you know, gray-haired Nagato and Itachi for a prolonged period of time. Obviously, they're like in their Edo Tensei like auto mode, so they're not fighting with their full abilities. But at one point or another, Itachi's just going to activate Kodo pretty early in the fight. It's not like this fight lasts that long anyway. And then it's like Itachi, Sage Mode, Naruto, and B versus Nagato. And the only way this makes a difference is like for Chibaku Tensei with Naruto, you know, if he's not in Sage Mode at that time, he won't be able to like throw a Rasen Shuriken. But I mean, in this point, if we just say like the fight doesn't last that long and he's still in it, it just kind of progresses the same way. Like nothing really changes this matchup as much, as none of the new abilities from Sage Mode would really offer him much against two opponents who are just outright stronger than him. Like at best, Naruto just does better at hand-to-hand or close quarters and can see things coming better. But again, it doesn't really change too much in the grand scheme of like everything. So yeah, I don't think this section requires too much. Like this one doesn't really make a difference, to be honest. And like an argument you could make for Naruto is that he does that giant Odama Rasengan barrage that he does against the Kyuubi. Now, while the Kyuubi's feats you can argue they take place in the Mindscape, so you could argue them, Naruto can do that. It would just run his Sage Mode timer down. The reason he doesn't is because in the biggest fight with Sage Mode, he had clones waiting on Mount Miyaboku, and against the Diva Path, it wouldn't have made a difference since a large-scale Shinra Tensei would have blown all their clones back, and they would have just like taken away his Sage Mode timer. So that is an option, and even if you argue he doesn't make as many clones, because, you know, you could argue while he's fighting the Kyuubi, he's like continuously gathering nature energy, he still can make multiple shadow clones while in Sage Mode. He just now doesn't have some finite limit to him. Next up, we have Naruto, like Kyuubi mode Naruto versus the Ninetales, and this fight kind of already happened. After Naruto like undoes his seal against the Kyuubi, and you know that whole fight happens, his seal actually changes. You could argue he just remade it, or it got remade through the throughout that fight, and it takes the shape of a Magatama. It's through this seal that Naruto is able to shelve a portion of the Kyuubi's chakra and also use like the Tori gates, which Kurama remarks is reminiscent of Six Paths. And we know Naruto can just do this anytime. Like he just goes into like when he's having a conversation with the Kyuubi, he just hops in behind the cage and drops another Tori seal on him. So if you argue Naruto can still do this, then that would just be his win con throughout the fight. He's just able to suppress the Ninetales via his new seal, which not too many people are aware of, actually. These are not Hashirama's deity gates. By the way, I just want to make that clear. That's a completely different, like, concept entirely. They just kind of have, like... It's like a Tori. It's like a bird perch. They're just the same thing, but they operate fundamentally very differently. It's not that Naruto can do this outwardly. So if you give Naruto the same power set, he would just win via that, or like the same abilities. But if you didn't want to argue that and just like, okay, like what happens if they fight? Naruto's obviously not going to be able to make as many clones as he did in the original timeline. Even if including like Kushina support, he's just not able to make that like as many shadow clones as he does in that Sage Mode that fights the Kyuubi. So it's like 12 Odama Rasengans from like Kyuubi Naruto is probably not doing what it did to the Ninetales. Granted, you kind of have to weigh like how strong is Kyuubi Naruto's Rasengan versus Sage Mode Naruto. There's no real metric. I'm gonna be honest, like they both have good AP feats, so I would just say they're in a comparable range, especially for Naruto to think he could use like, you know, a regular Sage Mode Rasengan on an opponent that just got boloed by a Rasen Shuriken. And I know that he reflected the Raikage's arm into his chest, but I briefly covered that, you know, Sage Mode probably isn't an entirely different sphere in terms of AP either. But if you actually want to argue that like Naruto can just do like 12 shadow clones all with their own Rasen Shuriken and just slam that into Kurama, low-key, you might be able to see a scene where he's just getting, like, tagged by, like, 12 Rasen Shurikens going off, which would be pretty funny to see, I'm not gonna lie. The main difference is that Kyuubi Naruto wouldn't have the same physical, like, Kyuubi chucking strength that Sage Mode Naruto does, and be able to open up, like, a Rasen Shuriken to, like, just graze his chest there. Since the Ninetales is actually just reacting to most of the stuff Naruto does. He's just in, like, pretty bad situations. Naruto even remarking about the Kyuubi speed. And this is also Naruto with, like, his enhanced sensory. So, you know, the Kyuubi being threatening to him also would just kind of mean that he does pose a threat to Kyuubi Naruto. A lot of the hits Naruto gets off on the Kyuubi as well are from, like, Kushina or, like, his Sage Mode strength, as the Ninetales has no issue, like, reacting to or blocking an Odama Rasengan. I think the best way to argue Kyuubi Naruto winning is just like multiple Rasen Shuriken in a similar capacity to like the Rasengan Barrage, but it's kind of unclear if like it would work in a similar capacity. Like, I don't know, just imagine like 12 Rasen Shurikens being chucked at the Kyuubi, you know what I'm saying? Like, what does he do? What does he, like, bro, like, it's like, you know that Willem Dafoe, like, meme where he's, like, looking up at the sky, like, horrified? Like, that's what I imagined, like, kind of going down. But yeah, I think you can make a valid argument Kyuubi Naruto to be able to just, like, damage the Nine Tails and pull the Chakra out. The only thing that throws me off is that he's just not going to be able to make as many clones with the physical strength to pull. Because Naruto's pulling the Chakra with all of his clones in Sage Mode. Obviously, we know Sage Mode Naruto just flipped the Kyuubi. All of his clones are insanely strong as well. So when you kind of look at it, it's like, okay, are the Kyuubi Naruto clones going to be able to, like, or do they showcase, like, that same physical dexterity? Not really, in my opinion. Like, one of Naruto's better feats in terms of physical strength is, like, opening or holding open Roshi's mouth, especially while he's fatigued in Kyuubi Chakra mode. But, like, the Bijou physically aren't that crazy to contend with. I mean, Kakuzu catches a Two-Tails paw, so they're just not that insane. Like, I take flipping the Kyuubi over, like, holding open Roshi's mouth any day. I don't know. It's made a lot more distinct that Sage Mode has a lot more, like, physical strength to it. So Kyuubi Naruto might also struggle quite a bit with the whole Chakra pull as well. That's probably going to be an issue as well. He's obviously, you know, can hold the Chakra with Chakra arms, so maybe that makes a difference. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. It's just one of those things, like the fight probably doesn't even happen due to the Torii Gates. So it's just like a weird matchup, honestly speaking, like weird to think about. He'd probably do better in some respects, but worse in others. Last up, we have Kyuubi Naruto versus Blind Madara. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like, you kind of have to go with, like, the stronger variant that was fighting along EMS Sasuke. Because Naruto doesn't really access, like, Kyuubi Chakra mode any after that during the war at all. Like, that's the last moment. Then it's just, he goes into, like, Kurama Link mode or KCM2, however you want to say that. So, at that point, it's just kind of like, okay, how does Madara scale in comparison to, like, that Naruto and EMS Sasuke? Well, Naruto and Sasuke go through, like, adaptations. They get stronger against Obito. And then, like, Madara has no issues kind of, like, dogging this same EMS Sasuke. Like, he's not really threatened by him. He's able to dodge and weave around all his attacks. This same Madara is just outright stronger than his Edo Tensei counterpart. Now, that doesn't mean he'd win against that version in a fight, but I'm saying physically he's stronger along with Hashirama's Sage Sensory. So it's not like he's really that pressed, along with having some of the Rinnegan abilities retained in his base form, like the Preta Path, which is actually a big issue for Naruto because then he gets fuel Madara with Chakra. We see this with Madara just absorbing a Madarasu, or if you look at when he's standing off against the Tail Beast, he's actually absorbing a Kyuubi cloak off of one of the shinobi on the ground that he takes down. If you're more curious on, like, the growth between Naruto and specifically Sasuke, I have a video on that, like, in outlining his growth in the war. But essentially, yeah, Madara can just use the Preta Pad to absorb the Kyuubi Chakra or any of the attacks incoming. And you could actually infer that the Sage mode later on in the war is at a closer level to some of the variants of Kyuubi Chakra mode, as they perform a lot of the similar feats. So, for example, right, this version of Kyuubi Chakra mode does the Odama Rasen Shuriken. Sage mode Naruto does the same thing when he chucks it at Edo Madara. Naruto's also later in the war entering Sage mode almost instantly after sitting down for a literal second. He also just can do the one-handed Rasengan, which he actually never performed up until this point, without a clone or additional hands, which were always required. His Rasen Shuriken limits also increased to 4 compared to the previous 2. If you look at the anime, he throws 5. This is all being done when he's throwing the Rasen Shuriken against the Ten Tails when he's raining down splinters. He's like reacting to the Ten Tails mid-air. He's able to like throw Kakashi out the way. And again, I just mentioned the Odama Rasen Shuriken feat. So even this variant of Sage mode that Madara is just kind of slapping around like and just dogging on physically, even with his enhanced reflexes, you know what I mean, isn't that far off from some of these Kyuubi Chakra modes later in the war. It's kind of hard to judge exactly when. I'm just saying that Sage mode is getting insanely amped, to the point that Naruto looked at Jubito and was like, all right, time to do Frog Kumite. Bro, what? What are you talking about? That's a Ten Tails Jinchuriki. It makes no sense. And it's just kind of like the natural progression of like Naruto just using the form more, which B kind of outlines in a similar principle with Kyuubi Chakra mode. So even the Sage mode variant that Madara just walks, and he's actually able to damage with his like hiding in Ash Jutsu because Naruto physically recoils, is just like quite a bit stronger. And even if you just go off Madara being above EMS Sasuke, That's a far stronger variant that was just blatantly on par with Naruto. They match chakra ratios. It's pretty explicit that they're just on the same level. And you could argue that Sasuke's fatigued off of the like Obito fight, which I do think has some semblance to why he just didn't use Susanoo and just bust Madara there. But in terms of like physicals, the fact that Madara is still above like his Edo Tensei part would just put him above this Kyuubi Naruto and that version of EMS Sasuke. We also do know Madara does have access to the Susanoo while blind, so he does have options. He does have options. He can absorb ninjutsu, so, you know, he can restrain Naruto with the Rinnegan rods. He does have ways to win here, so it's not as if he's really, like, pressed for anything like that. And this version of Naruto, like, he has all this stuff, like mini Bijudamas and stuff like that, but none of it's really that threatening to Madara in a similar sense to how Sasuke in that stronger version or this Sage Mode weren't really threatening to Madara. And it's kind of like just stronger physical Madara with Hashirama Sage Mode, like all stacked on top of it. So it's just pretty, you know, there's not too much Naruto would do here. Just kind of get his chakra absorbed and just, you know, get suppressed via Rinnegan rods as Madara just beats him down. I don't think like his physicals at this point are enough to like compensate for just the sheer stat difference that's here. Like there's no argument to be made. I'm going to be honest. So that's the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I sure did. Let me know your thoughts. I thought this was a really fun discussion that I tried to bring up. I tried, bro. I tried. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can only do so much. You know what I mean? So, hey, man, let me know your guys' thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, why? Let me know your thoughts down below. Specifically with that Raikage matchup. I'm really curious to hear what people thought of some of the stuff I was bringing up. So, yeah, let me know you guys down below, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye!